You are listening to Diasporic Music on Black Power in 96 with Melinda Francis, Norman Richmond, and Lisa Watson is on the buttons. And joining us on the line is Lawrence Hamm, the chair of the People's Organization for Progress and a long distance runner. This is track season, and unlike Larry Hamm, he must not have West African roots. His roots must be in East Africa because he's not a sprinter. He ran the distance. He was a distance runner. Am I right in saying that?
That's right. I was a 2-miler in my day. But let me tell you something. These brothers and sisters out of East Africa, they are running superhuman speeds, brother. They have they make us look slow, like slowpokes.
Oh yeah, it has a lot to do with the training, the altitude, and I don't think it's not all biological. It has a lot to do with some hard work.
Absolutely not. Because if it had been all biological, they would have been dominating. Overall dominating, not individually. They've been dominating since the 60s, but there's been a kind of transition, the Europeans, the British and the Swedes. Well, the Swedes had Paavo Nurmi, and he was considered, for them, the father of long distance running. And Banner broke the Roger Bannister, I believe, broke the first to break the 4-minute mile in England. But then in the 60s, what happened? Abebe Bikila came in from Ethiopia and is the only man, I believe, to have won the Olympic marathon twice. He won it, I believe, what was it, in 64 and 68, was it? I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And then for a time in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, the Latin Americans were running strong, in the distances. But by the time we got to the 21st century, the East Africans have clearly been dominating with the example of Eliud Kipchoge, the first one to unofficially have run a sub-2-hour marathon. Amazing. 26 miles. That means he was doing like more than 13 miles an hour.
Yeah, but we have to raise some money for Diasporic Music and CKLN.
That's right. That's right.
You have been a very important part of this particular show. You come on most of the time to help us achieve our goal. And why do you think people should listen to this station?
Well, Diasporic Music is one of the very, very few independent media outlets that we have that bring a progressive, a left, a radical perspective to the analysis of our political situation at this time. I listen to Diasporic Music almost every week. You have one of my favorite people on, Dr. Gerald Horn. Oh, my YouTube notifies me every time you have Gerald Horn on. So I listen to Diasporic Music, and Diasporic Music has been one of the few places where independent grassroots organizations like the People's Organization for Progress to come on and talk about what we're doing, and how it is we're trying to fight, the ruling class and fight capitalism and imperialism and racism. So for these and many, many other reasons, people should support Diasporic Music, should support Black Power 96, and not just in spirit, but send in donations Send your donations today so that we can continue. And we need diasporic music. We need our progressive radio and internet outlets. We need them now more than ever before as we face the threat of fascism all over the world. It's not just Donald Trump, and it's not just the U.S., but we see, you know, a kind of fascist international arising throughout the world. So those are some of the reasons. So everybody support, please, please, please. I want to do like James Brown. I want to fall down on my knees and beg for people to support diasporic music.
And you have the correct pronunciation, because it's not diasporic. It is correct. The correct pronunciation is a diasporic. But I think I speak Ebonics. You went to one of those Ivy League schools. I'm messing with you.
Well, yeah, I did, and Gerald Horn did too. So I don't feel so bad.
Yeah, you definitely. It is definitely diasporic. It is not diasporic.
Right, and we are the Africans in the diaspora.
Yes, sir. Melinda, you have something to say?
Yeah, just to follow up and encourage, you know, listeners to donate to the July fund drive. We have like all of July to donate. Our goal at the station is $10,000. Our show goal is $500. We always, you know, welcome more than that. So we hope to like exceed our goal. So if you go to blackpower96.org/DM, you can donate directly to the show. If you're analog and you want to call in your pledge, there's, you know, people at the station answering phones, so you can call 1-888-979-2796 and become a member and become a sustainer. Support the station, you support the show.
And you are listening to Diasporic Music on Black Power 96. And you are coming out of New Jersey, and another a great, I guess, a E-man would be Mr. Paul Robeson, and he was a football player, a singer. He went to. Did he go to? Where did Paul Robeson go? Did he go to Princeton?
He went to Rutgers. He applied for admission to Princeton and was denied because he was black. Princeton generally did not accept black students in any significant number until the 1960s. Paul Robeson was born in Princeton, New Jersey. His father was the minister of the, I believe it's the Presbyterian Church in Princeton.
I think it was AME.
Yes, and I've been to the church. The church is still there. It's in Princeton. It's on, I believe it's on Witherspoon Street in Princeton, New Jersey. In fact, the brother that you may know, Lukata Mjumbe, I don't know if you know him or not. I think you might know him. He was the pastor of that church for a time. But Paul Robeson grew up in Princeton, graduated Phi Beta Kappa from Rutgers. He graduated with honors from Rutgers. He was an All-American. Because he was a tremendous athlete. He played a number of sports while he was at Rutgers, and then he got his law degree from Columbia University, and I believe he graduated Phi Beta Kappa from Columbia, but he did not pursue a career in law. It wasn't long before he was distinguished himself in the arts as a singer and as an actor, and he spoke multiple language. I would refer people, as you have before, Brother Norman, to, if people can go online or go on YouTube and find Paul Robeson, The Tallest Tree in Our Forest, which was produced by Gil Noble. And it was part of the Like It Is series. But he was Malcolm X and Dr. King before Malcolm X and Dr. King. He was such a threat to the establishment that they took away his passport and tried to totally impede his ability to make a living. Within months, his income. He was one of the most well-known. I think he was the first Black person to ever play Othello on Broadway in New York, and he was internationally renowned. He was a star in a number of movies, but because he spoke out against racism at home and imperialism abroad, because he was a friend to the Soviet Union and urged the United States to have peaceful relations with the Soviet Union, they branded him a communist and tried to destroy him, as they did his contemporary W.E.B. Du Bois. So we revere Paul Robeson, and I would refer people to works by Gerald Horne on Paul Robeson also.
Gerald Horne has a book on Paul Robeson, and there's also, I would encourage everyone to go to YouTube and listen to Paul Robeson sing the Chinese national anthem in Mandarin. He could speak approximately 27 languages.
Yes, he was a genius. He represented the best amongst us, and he gave his whole life. He dedicated his life to standing up for the oppressed and the exploited. My one regret is that I did not get to meet Paul Robeson. I met his son, and I met his granddaughter. His son, when I was a student at Princeton, working with the Third World Center at Princeton University, we brought his son, Paul Robeson Jr., to speak at Princeton University. And I met his granddaughter. She used to be one of the staff for Gil Noble at ABC television. And, my regret is that I did not get to meet Robeson when he was so close. When he passed away, I believe in 1976, he was living in Philadelphia. And Philadelphia would have been a short train ride for me. And I wish I had known, and because I would have tried to have gone to visit him and meet him, because he was definitely one of my heroes.
In terms of diasporic music, how did you hear about diasporic music, and how did you hear about Black Power 96?
Well, both Black Power 96 and diasporic music, I learned about them through the Uhuru movement, led by Omali Yeshitela, the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party. And that's the interlocutor. He was the interlocutor, so to speak, between you and I. And, they used to put out a newspaper. I believe it was called, well, I think they still do publish the newspaper, Burning Spear. Yes, and it was a fine newspaper. In fact, it was one of my members in the People's Organization for Progress who was getting that newspaper and brought that newspaper to me one day. And as a result of seeing that newspaper, eventually I was able to connect to Brother Yeshitela, who's been to Newark on a number of occasions to speak, and that led to our association, and I'm glad all of that has happened, because it has redounded to the benefit of the People's Organization for Progress and of the movement in our area. One of the things I want to mention before our interview concludes, you know, next week is the 58th anniversary of the Newark Rebellion. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yes, sir.
It was July 12th, 1967, that Black people in Newark rose up against their oppressors. And for 5 days, there was a rebellion, an uprising. Now, the mainstream media will say it was the Newark riots, but almost no one today refers to it as a riot. Even people who are part of the establishment will say rebellion. It's really something to see, because like I lived through that and I could see the transition, you know, and when people would say the Newark riots, and then gradually some would say riots and some would say rebellion. And now almost everyone says rebellion. So on Saturday, July 12th at 12 noon, we will have our annual commemoration. The People's Organization was founded in 1982. August will mark 43 years. And almost every year that we have been in existence, we have commemorated the Newark Rebellion. And at this time, there's a small park in Newark that actually has a monument to the rebellion with the names of all the people, I believe 27 people who were killed in the Newark uprising. And I lived through that uprising. I was about 12 or 13 years old when it happened in the summer of 67, and it was a cataclysmic event, and it was an event that changed my life. And I think it would be safe to say that it was a transformative event for Black people, because before night, it's almost like what was it, BC and AD, how they divide time. Well, in Newark, right, it's pre-1967 and post-1967. Because after the rebellion, Black people stopped referring to themselves as Negro and colored and other things, and everybody was Black, you know. And James Brown, that after it was the late summer of 1967, came out with the song "Say It Loud, I'm Proud." And so on Saturday, July 12th, we're going to have our annual commemoration. It's going to take place 12 noon at the Newark Rebellion Monument, which is 250 Springfield Avenue in Newark, New Jersey. And it's open to the public. We want everybody to come out. And then the following Thursday, on July 17th, we're going to have another demonstration to protest against the racist and fascist Trump regime. July 17th marks the anniversary of the passing of John Lewis. And I'm sure your listeners are familiar with the recently held No Kings demonstrations that were held all across North America, in the United States, and in Canada. So the same folks that were pushing the No Kings demonstrations, they are imploring people to organize demonstrations on July 17th to mark commemorate John Lewis and to protest against the Trump regime's attacks on all the gains of the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement. And we're going to be doing that. We're going to meet Thursday, July 17th at 4:00 p.m. in front of the Federal Building, 970 Broad Street in Newark, New Jersey. And we're going to engage in protest and maybe even some civil disobedience in the spirit of good trouble, which is what John Lewis was talking about toward the end of his life.
Newark, New Jersey. I went to Newark, New Jersey. I think it might have been 1968, and I was at that particular time. I was what would they say, slipping into darkness. I was on the ground I
You
remember,
like war, right?
and I remember going to the Spirit House, seeing
Yes.
Amiri Baraka, and that was the first time I saw my idol, Mr. Archie Shepp.
Yes.
Yep, Archie. Yeah, it was the first time I saw him, and Amiri was I think he's almost like a throne type of situation. It's kind of in the Spirit House. It was a Spirit House, right?
Yes. Yes, he was the father of the current mayor of Newark. He was really one of the leaders of the Black Power movement in America, and many consider him the father of the modern Black arts movement. I've seen that reference to him in many writings in many places. He had an organization. At first, it was called the United Brothers. That's what it was, probably around 1966, when Ken Gibson launched his first run for mayor. And then the rebellion occurred. Literally a week after the rebellion, there was a Black Power conference in Newark that Amiri Baraka helped to convene. A year after that, there was a Black Power convention in 1968. And then in 1969, there was the Black and Puerto Rican convention. And out of that came the Community's Choice electoral ticket for the city government. And at the top of the ticket was Mayor Ken Gibson, followed by Sharp James, who was elected South Ward Councilman. Dennis Westbrook was elected Central Ward Councilman, and Earl Harris was elected at large. So we had the first Black mayor in the 350-year history of Newark. He was elected in 1970, a year after the Black and Puerto Rican convention. And not long after that convention in 70, remember, Brother Norman, there was the Pan-African Congress in Atlanta, Georgia in 1970 also. And then 2 years after that, there was the National Black Political Convention in Gary, Indiana. So these were benchmark events in the Black Power movement in the United States. And it's something to see. I lived long enough to see, because I came into the movement in 1971 when I was a high school student and was appointed by Ken Gibson to the Newark Board of Education. I think I still hold the record as the youngest person ever, youngest voting school board member ever, 17 years old. But it's something to see how Amiri Baraka, who was not loved by the establishment when he was alive, even the Black establishment, by 1973, 74. But then now his son is the mayor and is in his third term. Ras Baraka is in his third term as mayor of Newark. And I'm sure your audience was watching and hearing about Ras Baraka and reading about Ras Baraka when he was arrested at the ICE detention facility, Delaney Hall, in Newark, New Jersey. And that is an ongoing struggle.
Remember, Amiri Baraka was not our friends on the left did not see Amiri Baraka as a friend. They saw him as an enemy. I remember the followers of Leon Trotsky saw him as he might have been worse than the police. You know, they really had the Trotskyist League had the Spartacus League, pardon me. They had a campaign against him and the other organizations on the left. You know, I guess Amiri is very controversial because he's been through many stages, but we can say that when he passed away, he was on the left and had been on the left for many years.
Yes, and yes, he was controversial, and probably will remain somewhat controversial. But what we can say, without a doubt, is that he was a leader in Black people's struggle for liberation, for freedom and liberation. And he is fondly remembered by many people in Newark today.
Well, I know I must admit I was mesmerized by Amiri Baraka, and I was with him until he started saying that the Soviet Union was, for a brief moment, he said the Soviet Union was the biggest enemy, even worse than that U.S. imperialism. But he take that position for a long time, so well, we can't forget about it. But Amiri was a
Yes, there were a lot of what they used to call line struggles back in the mid 70s, and it's worth examining. One of the people I would recommend you bring on your show, if you would allow me to do that, would be Kamosi Woodard, who is a teacher, a professor at Sarah Lawrence University. Brother Kamosi was in Baraka's organization, and the Committee for Unified Newark. And when the committee dissolved, he went back to pursue his academic studies, to get his degrees, his college degrees. Eventually got his doctoral degree. He's written a book called Nation Within a Nation. Amiri Baraka, Nation Within a Nation, Amiri Baraka and the Struggle for Black Liberation. Something to that effect. It's one of the best books that people can read. The only thing I would say about the book is that it only goes up to about 1973 or 1974. So a lot of what you're talking about, the line struggles that were happening, the political struggles that were happening within the Black liberation movement and within the left as a whole, come right after, like during 1974. There was a period when, many Black organizations were Black nationalists or cultural nationalists, or some characterize themselves as revolutionary Black nationalists, like the Black Panther Party. But there was a overall tectonic shift in the Black movement in the mid 70s. I would say like 1974 and forward. And that's when people began to move away from Black nationalism as their primary ideological reference, and they began to embrace Marxism, Leninism. Some people embrace Marxism, Leninism, others embrace Marxism, Leninism, Mao Zedong thought, and these things were reflected in our movement, because those people that kind of followed the Chinese line, they had one line. Those people that followed the line, and then there were subdivisions in that. So there was a lot of what some people would characterize as intergenerational struggle. And, there's been a lot written about it. So people who are curious can go on and read about it and maybe try to derive lessons from that could help us today, because we really need a strong, powerful movement today to challenge fascism, to challenge racism, to challenge imperialism, to challenge capitalism, and we need it now as much as we ever have.
I think we have run out of time, sir. So we are raising funds for Black Power 96 and raising funds for Diasporic music. And Melinda, did you have anything else you want to say or ask Larry?
Yeah, well, we were running. I just wanted to sort of follow up, just to go back to fundraising, supporting the station. This is like this type of conversation you won't hear anywhere else. So it's very important that we, sort of support the platforms that, these voices are heard. So If listeners can go to their computer and type in blackpower96.org/D M. And if you're analog, you're going to want to go to, let me just get the number, go to your phone. I know there's some analog people out there and they only want to, call in. So we do have people at the station. Call 1-888-979-2796. And thanks again, Larry, for coming consistently. Probably, every couple of months you come on. So I want to, give thanks that you contribute bi-monthly usually.
Well, I thank you for inviting me, and it's a pleasure to be on with you, and I second your motion that everybody that's listening, please support this station, please support this program, please support it financially, and spread the word and get other people to listen to the program, and so we can build up our community in that way.
So as they say in Kiswahili, how do we say goodbye?
Utaonana.
All right, sir. Thank you
care,
very
brother.
much.
Take care.
All right. And it's time for the Jazz Zone with T in Providence, and we will be back shortly with the Horn Report with Dr. Gerald Horn.